This video illustrates the progress made with advanced biomechanical rehabilitation for a child who combines the autistic traits and the cerebral palsy condition. And the focus that we're going to have is on the way how the seemingly behavioral and big level things like cooperation, coordination, mood, readiness to participate, and so on and so forth, and of course also the coordination itself in a big way, how they are linked to the seemingly much smaller and not immediately related aspects, such as the control of the face. And this is the link that we are going to make, so that where the key big picture of the coordination improvement and mood improvement and general kind of well-being improvement, both physiologically and psychologically, is hooked, rooted in the way how the coordination works at the level of the face, the eyes, mimic muscles, and related activities such as swallowing, chewing, mastication with the use of the tongue, and so on. Let's start with those illustrations that show us the gross movements. And of course, the key trouble for this girl is super weak pelvis, super weak hips, and as a result, she has a tendency, well, has had this tendency for her entire life. She's 19 years old, so to pull the legs up, really withdraw them, and whenever possible, flip herself into this tailor sitting position, which just like doesn't really have any counterbalancing itself, but just uses the extended circle of support. So that's has been her characteristic feature for many years, and in the recent year we've seen a really big change. So that big change really shows the big difference in the way how she moves now. And what you also see is that where typically here there were all sorts of the large movements and activities, so you can really see how now the torso itself holds on in a lot clearer way, and therefore that clear torso control allows the expansion of the arms. And you can see that even the starting position is very different. So historically, she really didn't like to be touched on her hands and used to really hook and pull with them. And pretty much every parent of a child in this type of condition knows that they could really grab really strongly with their hands and then kind of literally pull you, hang on you, and so on. So that's why here the helper, the caregiver, she avoids the hand contact and tries to only use the elbows lift. So what we are seeing here, big difference. So we can see that now this girl is really quite happily allowing the usage of the hand grip, and the movement of the hands is not really translating into this pull of the legs. And if we zoom in, we are going to see the big differences in the face expressions. So in the overall articulation, and the control of the lips, control of the cheeks, the control of the forehead, the eyes, the eyebrows, and so on. Now let's look at those closer. The best illustration is eating. So here we can see approximately similar episodes, but in those similar episodes the situation is very different. So, but what is exactly different? For this we have to look at a bit of anatomy. And that anatomy is the one where we focus on the circular muscles of the face and mouth. And there are different pictures here. So this colorful picture, this intense picture, but we're going to use this one because it's really highlighting the link between the circular muscles around the orbits, or inside the orbits around the eyeballs, and the lips. And this is a message that I have been really trying to bring across for over and over again, that our focus in rehabilitation on big muscles and big movements, which we can see throughout this type of links and these types of the situations where the child is seen, in a global moving way, and then training done for the big muscles of the legs or the big muscles of the arms or the big muscles of the torso. This situation or this approach has some serious built-in limitations and flaws, for a simple reason that those big muscles, they are, for all their size, they are really very delayed in activation, so they are slow. This conversation I had before, but it absolutely makes sense to highlight it once again. So why the movement control, the progress of the face and mimics is so critical, so important? Well, very, very simple, because effectively what we are dealing with and what we are dealing with, in those pictures is the very deepest rooted, but at the same time the quickest muscles that the body has. So, and that's really two sides of the equation. So if we look at the eye muscles, or the eyeball muscles to be precise, right, so they are in size, they are small. So these are small centimeters, or actually more the millimeters. But at the same time, they are super quick. So they work in very short milliseconds, even though their forces are kind of being very small. On the other hand, the leg muscles or the arm muscles, the big ones, they are spanning across the large centimeters. They are apparently strong in terms of their external contraction, but the key problem is that they are at the same time they're also slow. Their delay in activation is very large. And in that respect, when we are really looking at how the brain works, what the brain actually operates on, which parameters are the most important, that's where we have to understand that it's the timing. The timing, which is the key thing. So it's the timing advantage of the smallest muscles of the eyes and face, which are essential for their overall performance control and so on. And that's really the true test of the brain injury or the brain capacity in that. And when we see the troubles which are apparently happening here on the size of the very big muscles, legs and arms, we associate it with the brain injury. But in fact, it's easier for the brain to control the slow muscles. The true test is here. More difficult to control the fast muscles, and once the brain figures out, or once we help and wake up those deepest, fastest muscles and so on, then the control of the leg and arm muscles improves automatically. That's the most important and the most practical paradox that one has to see overall in the quadriplegic and generally cerebral palsy rehabilitation. So this is the central message that we are trying to bring to you, that it's not that obvious, right? So it's not, you don't have to kind of ram through the front door and try to force the legs and arms into the better control. They can't. They're too slow. So therefore, if the brain only can use them, the quality of the movement would always be poor, and vice versa. Once we improve the calibration of the brain to the smallest and the quickest, then this calibration helps everything else. So that's really the key point, right? And in this video, now we are going to focus on the quality of the movements on the face and their controls, because again, usually people do not develop the eye for it. You know, you look at the big things, you don't look at the small things. And those small things, they also happen fast. Right? You see here, once you catch it, you can see, oh wow, this is a distinct face. Like here, you can really see how the eyes of this girl are kind of very asymmetrical. In the before video, you see that always, whenever she smiles and so on, she has a tendency to kind of have some type of like a bit of a squint, you know, like closing them, holding on, because they're so poorly stabilized internally, right? So she has to tighten up from the outside. And then when she does this moves, right, so she, even when she opens them up, you can really see then it comes with this kind of big movements of the body overall, rather than local chewing activity. But the most important, all this is happening within a second, and we are just not trained to perceive the movements that fast. So here we are, just for example. So this movement is being documented with the interval of 6 frames per second. So meaning, if we look here, right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that's just a second. So of course, in the live video, the live observation is very, very difficult for you to figure out how the things work. So that's why we have to slow down, zoom in into the movement and study what's happening there. That's how we can understand what's going on. We need to slow the time down. We need to apply this zoom, which I call the chronoscope, right? So chrono stands for time, and then the chronoscope, the whole idea is like a microscope. So, and here we are. See, there's a multiple moves, multiple episodes, and different foods. And with different foods, she does more or less the same thing. And now, if we are looking further, we can see the big difference in how she reaches out for the food. You can really see that, there's a lot less of this jaw extension happening now. So she's controlling herself a lot more with the mouth, rather than with this tightening at the bottom of the mouth and at the neck. And you see her movement backwards is a lot cleaner, where she's actually moving the head backwards and adjusting the body, rather than just keeping the head tightened and forwards and really just rocking the body. And this comparison is also very obvious, right? You can really see that's quite characteristic appearance, what you see on the left, for the children with autistic traits, that they are, very often they are, even if they are looking at you, they're looking through you, or they're basically just getting all the way from one gaze to another without really getting this concentration and without locking on. And now you can look at the new one, you can really see it's a completely different eyes locking and the expression, because this eyes locking, it stays. As her head moves, she has this movement transition all the time. But now let's have a look at what we wanted to study as a more specific movement. See, here the lips are much fuller, and if we look closer, we're also going to see the change in the dimples. They've deepened. From just the tightening of the cheeks, we really see the formation of this circle. And that's exactly why we are referencing this particular picture. So that's the depth which really stabilizes the face and which activates those small muscles. So that's really the cascade that one wants to be able to observe and interpret, and that's what you want for your channel. So you want this selective, proper control of the face, and the eyes, and this is going to give you not only the direct benefits such as better chewing, swallowing, and everything related cascade effect to the digestion and so on, but you will see the big difference in everything, in all the positions and the controls. And this is a good illustration which shows you, look, how much of the extra movements this girl has to do. So you see, it's like, it's not just an excuse, oh, you know, she's busy, she's active, and so on. She's as busy and active in the new video as before, but in the year prior, the video required her kind of really super tightening of the neck and big movements. So when she was actually participating with her entire body in this chewing act, and of course that brings an extra elevated tone, that burns energy, that makes her unsure, insecure, and so on, which some children, you know, react by withdrawing, and some children react by kind of protective aggression. And now the new one, you see, we observe the local chewing action, which we haven't seen before. So that's really a combination of factors which we wanted to bring to your attention. And then the natural question is, how has that been achieved? And that's our standard combination of the micro vibration tools and the ABR fascia gel. So this is what we are using for those scenarios, and the fascia gel has been our kind of staple helper for everything facially related. And you know, we have all explanations which are available for you, and illustrations of the comparisons and so on and so forth. And this is the encouragement for you to really take those things into account and just make that simple link. Better face, better control of everything related to the eyes of the face helps tremendously to the control of the mouth, to the control of the entire movements, behaviors, and so on. So that's an invitation for you. And I hope that this video helps you to get this clear link, that cleaner, more stable articulations within the face, they really translate into much improved control of the movements and much controlled behaviors and moods. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that this helps and leads you to the appropriate action.